Hello. Hello, this is the My Artifact episode number 3000, sorry, 4024. Today's date is 27. Yeah, 27 April 2026. It's been almost like a morning at exactly 8 a.m. Well, yesterday I haven't really recorded Artifact. Like, yesterday I did record Artifact in the morning, but in the night I haven't really recorded Artifact. The yesterday was wild. Okay, like why is wild? uh like yesterday, like all my friends are actually gathered, and after so many months, okay, yeah, and we are celebrating chicken, okay, chicken party. And it was really good. Like I spent almost like an entire day over there. We made chicken, we ate them, we talk, we do stupid shit, we plan about our tour. Like basically in October we are actually planning to go to Goa, planning to go for Goa. And we are actually kind of like doing a planning regarding about how do we supposed to do, what kind of like a money really required, cost and things and that. It's good, great. uh, Basically it's this thing. I was kind of like somebody spent almost like an entire day. Okay, I came home at almost like a, like basically it's this thing. The entire thing actually happened at 6:30 p.m. Then I went to workout. I came from workout at 9 p.m. And when I came at 9 p.m. I was so tired. I don't know like what exactly happened. Okay, I like this kind of like a tiredness. I never really feel like that. Like really tired. Oh yeah. It's not really that I done so much kind of like a things, but I was like really tired. I haven't really ate my dinner. I just went to sleep. And yesterday I slept almost like a 8 hour. Like 8 hour of sleep is a and constant, by the way. Like basically there is no drop at all. Just I slept at almost like a 10:30 p.m. I wake up at almost like a 7 a.m. So almost like a 7 plus 2. Like basically I slept at 11 p.m. Yeah, so almost like 8 hour of sleep, eight and a half an hour of sleep, which is like a really massive sleep. Like I never really kind of like a slept that much longer. Like usually my sleep cycle is almost like a 7 hour. Okay, 6:30 or 7 hour. 8 hour is a really max. Like a 8 hour sleep is like a, like I never really achieve 8 hour of sleep. And I'm talking about constant sleep. Like a, literally I slept for 8 hours. This is kind of like a things that never really happened. But yesterday I slept for 8 hours, which is like a really good. Okay, yeah. I wake up really fresh. Okay, yeah. And I'm recording Artifact right now. So yeah, should we ask question? Alright, let's just ask question. Okay, so question is, what define successful session? Okay, what exactly is this thing? Okay, what exactly is this thing? What exactly is question, and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build an app called My Artifact app. Okay, it's a kind of like a simply recording a journal. Okay, yeah. Like, have you ever kind of like a realized that key when you wrote the diary, you kind of like a facing a problem. The way that you think, and the way that you think is much more faster than way that you write. Yeah. There are a lot of constraint to kind of like write the diary, because the spelling, the text and things and that. What if we could kind of like a change from writing a diary to recording a diary, like audio recording? I called them as a artifact, audio artifact. Like the stuff that you are kind of like watching right now, it's my artifact. My artifact episode number 4024. It's been almost like a 11 year I'm doing this thing, and because of this recording artifact, it add so much amount of value inside of me, so much. Yeah. I realized that yeah, I should supposed to be share this technicality to the world. So that's why I'm kind of like creating this application, my artifact. It's a kind of like a my application is a kind of like a somewhat something YouTube. Okay, yeah. People will kind of like a in the YouTube video, in the YouTube platform, people are kind of like upload their video, other people see their video. It's kind of like a same that people will kind of like a record the artifact, other people will kind of like a listen the artifact. By the way, the whole process is a audio platform. It's not a video platform, it's audio platform. Okay. So there is a one thing that I'm trying to provide is the privacy. Means user will not gonna know who they are and what they are, and kind of like a things. Privacy is very much essential. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a simply app. Okay, yeah. Why am I asking this question to myself? Okay, so basically, before I wanted to build this app, I wanted to understand all the possible consequences. What will gonna happen when I build the app? I have to be asked a kind of like a question to myself that what exactly user are expecting from my app and what kind of like a value that I'm providing to my user. So I wanted to kind of like me re-verify that he like I wanted to sure that he like I wanted to understand every possible consequences that what will gonna happen when I build the app and things and that and that. So I went to ChatGPT. I kind of like I said, this is my application, this is that, this is that, this is that. Suggest me at least like 100 question so that I would verify that am I kind of like doing something right or wrong. So ChatGPT kind of like suggests me hundreds of questions, and this is one of those questions. By the way, all those questions actually in the mobile phone, but while recording I can't do things, so that's why I wrote question in here. This is the question. By the way, this is the new book that I'm reading right now, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Highly recommend to you to read this book. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing what consider as a what define as a successful session. Okay, what exactly is this thing question? The successful session means like that when people will kind of like record the artifact. Okay, yeah. So when they record the artifact, how do you define them? Like how do you kind of like consider them they kind of like record very successfully? Successfully means what? Like they are also satisfied with what they record. Also regarding about the value that I'm providing, is that value will gonna implement or not? Example, a random user record the artifact. That particular person talk about kind of like things happen. Let's talk about from the user point of perspective. So when the user will kind of like record the artifact, does that particular user will satisfied? It depends on so many factors. First of all is that if the user is the just started recording artifact, started means like basically this is maybe first or second artifact and he's a kind of like a recording, so he might feel little bit of awkwardness, and that is true. When I record artifact, when I started recording artifact, my artifact would be so awkward that I can't tell you, like basically I just can't even face myself. Okay, yeah. So and talking to yourself, like basically there is no other thing, like you are actually talking to your mobile phone, basically you are talking to yourself, and that is little bit of awkwardness. Okay, yeah. And at the beginning people might gonna feel awkwardness, and when they feel awkwardness they might not feel satisfied when they record the artifact. That is true. That does not called kind of like an unsuccessful session, but it meant to be happen. Okay, yeah. Like I try to make sure that the awkwardness is a kind of like a bit more common thing. Okay, yeah. My app will kind of like suggest that do not feel awkwardness. It's a kind of like a things, like it's a kind of like a things that you are talking to yourself. It's very awkward thing. Okay, yeah. At the beginning they might gonna feel that thing. For that particular purpose, app will kind of like notify them that it's been really normal to feel awkward when you record the artifact. Okay, yeah. Just be consistent throughout the time. Okay, if you being continue together, like continue for at least like a week, that awkwardness will gonna go on and you might kind of like feel really good. Just consistent for at least like a 7 days. Okay, yeah. So yeah, this is the kind of like a problem number 1, and this is the solution for that kind of like giving them a kind of like a something a notification. Another thing, from awkwardness point of perspective. The new user will definitely kind of like feel really awkwardness. So kind of like somebody is this thing, the people will kind of like open my application. They will not gonna start recording artifact. They will first listen people's artifact. Okay, yeah. So basically, it's this thing. I have to be recommend such a artifact, that such a people's artifact, that they kind of like added the value in their life. Like basically, is this thing, the particular person kind of like somebody record the artifact regarding about how much value that he'd add regarding about artifact, and how much it kind of like a awkwardness when he kind of like experience the first time artifact. So basically is this thing, these are kind of like a something artifact should supposed to be recommend when he listen first. Okay, yeah. Because I wanted that they should supposed to be listen, that what kind of like a consequences will they face, okay, and what kind of like a some value that they get. Okay, yeah. Instead of kind of like a jumping them into the kind of like a listen random stuff, let them kind of like a listen regarding about the kind of like a how much value that he get, how much kind of like awkwardness that it felt, and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So when they when they record the artifact, they might not feel that much awkwardness. Okay, yeah. So this is the kind of like a things that I do at the beginning. Okay, like at the beginning of the people who are kind of like a feeling the awkwardness. Okay, yeah. Now the question number 2 is that the people who kind of like assembly recorded artifact, and they are kind of like not really feel really awkwardness. Okay, yeah. So what kind of like a make their artifact kind of like a really good successful artifact. Now this is kind of like a things that a successful artifact is actually defined by what is exactly person is actually talking. Basically it's this thing na ki, let's just say we started recording, like basically let's take this artifact. So when I record artifact, like it's a kind of like a sometimes now it's a very boring to talk about what exactly happened throughout the day. Like there is nothing really happened. Okay, yeah. Like basically we wake up every day, we do stuff, we do this, and that's it. There is nothing really happened special. Almost 90% of the life is just nothing really happened at all, just being kind of like a usual stuff and things and that and that. And what do I supposed to say in the artifact? Nothing really at all. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing now, artifact should supposed to be have a kind of like a something, the a kind of like a somebody that things that they kind of like a somebody understand, or things that they kind of like a structure. Okay, and what is exactly that structure? Structure came from question. Like basically I asked this question to myself, so basically that question give me the structure to talk, a topic to talk. Okay, yeah. And when I get that topic, I am started talking about this particular stuff. Okay, yeah. So topic, the question is very much essential. So basically what makes successful session is not defined by kind of like a somebody what exactly happened throughout the day. No, it defined by what kind of like a question that artifact ask. Okay, yeah, to the user, and user feel kind of like a satisfied when they kind of like a somebody give the answer and things and that and that. Example, let's just say is this thing that a particular person is actually going through kind of like a somebody very terrible situation. Exam. Okay, let's say exam. Okay, yeah. That particular person has an exam for almost like a week after, and he's very stressed and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now he is kind of like a recording artifact and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So in that thing, how is actually my app will kind of like a let them kind of like a somebody that let them kind of like a something that they just learn something, or they just kind of like a something is this thing, they feel satisfied, or they just feel successful. What kind of like a question would you ask? Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, if that particular person kind of like a stress about the exam, and if that particular person kind of like a mentioned previously regarding about that week after I have exam about electronics or thermodynamics. Okay, yeah. So basically my algorithm understand that this particular person has an exam of week after. So basically is this thing that Adam means my algorithm, they will kind of like somebody suggest such a question regarding about thermodynamics, regarding about electronics, or regarding about whatever the subject that they have. So basically is this thing not too much in deep, but just kind of like a little bit. Okay, yeah. Like a basically, or maybe kind of like a somewhat something that what do you learn today, or maybe something that what kind of like a something thermodynamics means for you and things and that, or else some people are kind of like somebody just don't want to think about that. Like when the exam is actually happening, they are kind of like somebody listening and thinks about the kind of like exam, and they came artifact, they came here into my platform to kind of like somebody talk about something else, not to talk about exam. So basically kind of like somebody asks such a question that regarding about relieving them, like basically asking such a question that ki uh, like a what will happen if you kind of like a pass in exam, okay, or kind of like a somebody, if you kind of like a really good, like if the kind of like a question paper is kind of like a set according to the question that you know, then what do you feel? Okay, yeah. So this kind of like somebody question that kind of like somebody is this thing that ki it's associated with the exam, but somewhat something that a different tone. Okay, yeah. So that people might kind of like a feel like that, okay, yeah, like this is kind of like a really good, I have to kind of like give the answer and things and that. So successful session is a kind of like a depends upon kind of like a what question that it ask. Okay, yeah. Now it's not a kind of like a somebody that Adam will kind of like a suggest the question. Okay, yeah. Sometimes user do have a kind of like a flexibility, or a user do have a kind of like a something that whatever the question that they want, user should supposed to be asked that question. Like example is this thing that key I have the explore tab. Okay, yeah. In my explore tab, the particular people actually talking about different topics. So these are kind of like a question banks. Okay, yeah. So what exactly happened is that it's a kind of like a thing is that na ki they will choose that what kind of like a question that they ask. Okay, yeah. Like instead of kind of like a something that he kind of like a things that he how much kind of like a views and things that they are kind of like a talking about such a question that kind of like a value more, like a self-help question, or kind of like a some communication, or kind of like a basically something study material, like a basically economics, or kind of like a history, or kind of like a science questions and things and that. Okay, yeah. So these are kind of like a explore. Okay, yeah. And they will kind of like they have this question bank. Okay, question bank is cluster of question. Okay, yeah. Like kind of like a 20 question cluster. So they will kind of like a cluster that kind of like add a kind of like a wish list, or add a kind of like in the list, or add a kind of like a things that he when they will kind of like a record the artifact, there is a kind of like option that ki you should supposed to be asked question regarding about this particular question too, that you kind of like a somebody like a liked it, or that you kind of like a wish list is, or kind of like a things like that. This might be kind of like a really helpful that Adam will not gonna intervene every single time. User will have a kind of like a things that key they will gonna talk about this particular topic. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, the successful session actually define about a kind of like a simply question. Okay, yeah, like a what kind of like a question that you are kind of like asking, and how they kind of like a feel really good when they kind of like ask such a question. Okay, yeah. Now this is kind of like a simply user point of perspective. Let's talk about system point of perspective. How does system will kind of like a somebody successful session. Okay, yeah. Successful session is kind of like a depends on kind of like a multiple factor. First of all, privacy, like I'm kind of like already mentioned that key I am providing the privacy to the user. Okay, yeah. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key if I'm kind of like a providing privacy to the user, that means like a basically I have to maintain the user privacy. So first of all is that, okay, yeah, is my application what kind of like a information takes from the user. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing that key my algorithm means like Adam. Okay, I mentioned them as a Adam. Okay, yeah. So Adam will kind of like a get the information about your location and your time. That's it. Okay, means like that. This is like I'm recording artifact. So Adam will get the Adam is an algorithm. Adam will kind of like a get the information regarding about this artifact. Is that this artifact is belong to this username, not name, just username, and the location like a where that artifact came from, and kind of like a time. Okay, that's the only thing. Adam does not know your real name, does not know your everything at all. Okay, even if okay, that's kind of like a thing. Okay, let me kind of like understanding the fact. Okay, just what exactly Adam does have information, and what kind of like Adam does not have the information. Let me clarify. My name is Saurabh Authare. I am from Wardha, Maharashtra. My father name is Hiraman Authare. My mother name is Karuna Avthare. My sister name is Sonali Avthare. I have friends name. I am kind of like a done this college. I am kind of like a graduate from this college and that and that. So these are nouns, and those are kind of like a trim out in the early stage of artifact. Okay, early stage means early in the app. Okay, like let me kind of like give you the understanding that what exactly happened with your information. Like when you record the artifact, what kind of like information will gonna happen. Okay, first of all, let's just understand what exactly is this thing. Let's start from the username. Okay, yeah, I am providing the privacy means what? Let me understand. Also, the information that I'm trying to tell you might not possible in the real life, or might not possible that I will gonna implement. I will try, but like it's the stuff that I'm trying to tell you is kind of like simply the stuff that I wanted to. But when I try to implement that thing, there are a lot of constraints will gonna happen. The mechanism might not gonna build, the algorithm might not gonna build, the Adam will not gonna build. So probably at the early stage of my artifact, I might not provide that much amount of value, but kind of like a somewhat something, mostly it will gonna happen. So how is actually happen? And also there are so many factors, because I can't promise you that anything, because the stuff that I'm trying to tell you is a kind of like a very much confidential, and I have to be work with the user, with also government too. Okay, yeah, because it's a lot of things. Okay, yeah, because when you build the app, you're not building app for one or two people, you're building app for millions and billions of people. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, the millions and billions of people will kind of like a recording artifact, and I'm kind of like a getting the information. So what kind of like information that I'm getting? So government will gonna intervene, the kind of like a somebody, yeah, government will gonna intervene, and basically I have to be kind of like a follow the government protocol, that what kind of like a government wants, and how am I kind of like using their information to kind of like a. Okay, so this is very much essential, because the stuff that I'm saying right now is not really exactly will gonna happen, because when I will gonna implement, it will kind of like a implement with lot of constraint, the government policies and things and that and that and that, and each country has a different kind of like a policy regarding about their informations and things and that and that. Okay, so I have to follow that thing. Okay, it's not really that I would supposed to say and it will happen. No, it's not. So try to understand. Okay, this is very much essential. Okay, so what will gonna happen when you record the artifact? This information, what exactly is this thing? Okay, so first of all is that this is the user, this is the Adam. Adam means algorithm. Okay, now this is the Adam. Now let's talk about the user. Okay, so user will not gonna mention their name, things and that and that and that, but still when you record the artifact, at the spur of the moment, you mention your name, you mention some sort of thing about your something. Okay, also I'm gonna make sure that when you record the artifact, you will get the pop-up message on the screen that do not mention your name, or do not kind of like a mention, try to protect yourself. This is the kind of like a first that basically my app is kind of like a letting them know that do not mention anything about your kind of like a things. It's kind of like a basic understanding, basic kind of like a let them know, do not mention your name. Okay, so user try not to mention their name, but spur of the moment they mention some sort of name and things and that and that. So what will gonna happen? Okay, so basically let's just talk from username. Okay, so basically is this thing, they will sign up as a email ID, Google email ID. Okay, now I have their email ID. Okay, and that email ID and kind of like somebody, I know that they have email ID and what kind of like a username that they generated. Okay, now what I'm thinking that Adam does not have this information. What kind of like information? Their email ID and their username. Okay, like their real name. Like let me kind of like associate. My real name is Saurabh Avthare. My email ID is should I mention? Okay, my email ID is prozac1943@gmail.com. Okay, so this is my kind of like a email ID. This is my real name. This is my real email ID. Okay, so let me tell you one thing. This is kind of like a very much essential. So when I put that thing and when I kind of like move to the next step. Okay, so this information, my name and my email ID, which kind of like somebody have a kind of like somebody based on authenticator. Okay, like there is a in between, there is a kind of like, I'm not really sure what exactly is this thing, a kind of like authenticator or what exactly is this thing. That authenticator authenticate that key, this is your email ID and this is your name, okay, yeah. And that authenticator kind of like a generate a username for you, okay, random username. It kind of like a suggests something username, okay, yeah. That username, you have to select that what kind of like a username that you want. You kind of like a select that username, and that username will kind of like a become your handle name, okay, yeah. And that's it. And then kind of like there is no information about you at all, okay, yeah. So basically whatever this username that you selected, that username goes to the Adam, it not, okay, yeah. Like basically this authenticator controls your name and things, and that it generate the username, and that username will kind of like go to the Adam. Then Adam will collect the information from that username, It does not collect the information from the email ID and things. No, it collect the information from the username, okay, yeah. So this kind of like a username, all right, get it? Okay, so these kind of like a things that key, I will maintain the privacy not from the user but from the Adam too, okay, yeah. But Adam is not a human, is a AI, is a kind of like a some algorithmic things. It's very powerful, okay, yeah. So how does it will gonna happen? How it will, like, this is kind of like some things, okay, yeah. Let's talk about the kind of like when you record the artifact, when the user kind of like talk about things actually happen in their life, okay, yeah. So the random username kind of like talk about something happened in their life. He mentioned his name in the artifact, spur of the moment. This information trim out in the app, and yeah, like basically how this actually happened. Basically is this thing, the you whatever the you kind of like a said convert into the kind of like a voice to text, okay, okay, yeah. But dude, how this actually happened? Like basically from email, from audio to text, it really required a kind of like a something that key AI to kind of like do this thing. So basically the information goes to the cloud, right? I don't know about that thing, but I don't know about that thing. That's the kind of like a things. But I don't want that key. Adam will kind of like intervene the raw artifact. No, Adam will kind of like just intervene the kind of like something just a trim out the segment. Like basically what exactly happened, that key user will kind of like talk, okay, yeah, record the artifact. Then my app will process that thing, and it kind of like says you mentioned this name in the artifact, okay, yeah. We have to trim it down. So basically those name will kind of like trim down in the artifact, okay. When it trim down, then that refine artifact goes to the authenticator connect the username, that username and artifact, that kind of like goes to the Adam, okay, goes to the Adam. Now basically what will Adam will gonna do, Adam try to understand you from whatever the kind of like information that you provide, besides your kind of like a name and kind of like your city name, your things and that. No, Adam does not have that information, because that information trim out in the application, okay. So Adam does have only information about your thing, okay. So Adam, whatever the information that you have, Adam try to kind of like somebody create the digital avatar of yourself, like what kind of like a person you are, what exactly is this thing, that and that, without knowing your name, without knowing who you are, without knowing where you from, without knowing everything, nothing like that at all. Just try to kind of like somebody Adam try to create the digital person of from that username, that what exactly person that you are and things and that, okay. Now this is kind of like a very much essential. When I'm say that Adam have this information, most of the government will not allow that, and that is a big problem, okay. Because let me tell you one thing, na, ki when Adam have that information, most of the government says that ki this is our kind of like a citizen information. Why does kind of like Adam have this information? So I have to be take the information from the government that ki sir, like this information is a very much essential for let them kind of like a user to kind of like give the better experience, okay. Also the information that I collected from the citizen of the yours is not a kind of like a legit information. It's not a kind of like something I like Adam knows your name. No, nothing really at all. Adam knows the kind of like just a username. So basically Adam does not have the real information about the citizen. Now Adam does not really have any kind of like information. Okay, yeah. It just kind of like they have information regarding about you sleep, you kind of like wake up very late, or you kind of like do the workout every single night. So this kind of like information that I have, it does not have the real information about who you are and what you are and things and that and that. So this is kind of like a bit more tricky, that some government will allow me to do this thing, some government will not allow me to do this thing. I have to be convince them, I have to be tell them, I have to be kind of like a things. Okay, let's take a kind of like a some scenario that what if some government will not letting me do this thing, some government will kind of like a tell this thing, this is our citizen information and we will not allow you to Adam have that information. So what will gonna happen in that situation? So if such thing will gonna happen, I don't know, but probably is this thing now, Adam is very much essential, our algorithm is very much essential. It's not really that ki Adam collect the information, it's a kind of like a thing that na ki what kind of like some experience that they're offering to the people and things and that. Okay, yeah. But that is also kind of like a very much big problem actually happened. I don't know about this particular stuff. Okay, yeah. Like right now I don't really have any information regarding about government policies and things and what kind of like stuff will gonna happen and things and that. Okay, yeah. I have to figure it out and that. Okay, because like Adam is really essential. Adam will ask question according to the personality, and Adam will utilize the information that you kind of like I said, it kind of like a digital personality, and it kind of like a somebody try to push you towards the right, towards the kind of like a ask you such a question that help you to build your personality and things and that. Let's just say is this thing, a particular person kind of like a mention that he try to wake up early morning, but he does not, he kind of like a wakes up at almost like a 9:30 a.m. So he was kind of like a struggling to this. So when the Adam have that information, Adam will try to ask such a question regarding about what is actually advantage that you get when you kind of like a wake up in early morning and things and that. So basically is this thing, when the Adam have that information, it kind of like a utilize to kind of like a improve the personality of the user. Okay, this is the kind of like advantage number one. Advantage number two is that when I have this kind of like a particular information, it's kind of like a really essential for that kind of like a somebody showcase such an advertisement which is kind of like a resonate with him, like this particular person kind of like a say this thing, I am a filmmaker, I like this and that. So basically I have this advertisement which kind of like a, let's just say filmmaking advertisement, let's just say Canon or Sony, they kind of like a build the camera, and when that kind of like a somebody advertisement and this is the target audience, so Adam will kind of like a direct them to this is the kind of like your target audience and things like that. It is very much essential. Like most of people kind of like things that na ki why like this kind of like things. It is very much essential because of that ki you are a filmmaker person and you are more likely towards looking at towards the buying new camera and things and that. And basically is this thing that Sony and Canon and whatever it is, it's kind of like a target audience. It kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki the ad agency, the ad company will kind of like get the revenue from the targeting their advertisement to the such a people who are kind of like a more likely towards the buy their product and things like that. So it's kind of like somebody very much essential to kind of like build their business too. Okay, because my application doesn't really wants that ki such a advertisement kind of like somebody really like not really associated with this thing. Okay, yeah. Like this is what it is now. Like basically if you are filmmaker guy, why do I supposed to kind of like somebody show you such a product that kind of like associated with the cooker, associated with the cooking thing? It's not really that na. Okay, yeah. Now another thing is that na, in that particular thing, most of the user or most of the government will gonna say you are kind of like taking the information of the user and kind of like you are showing me such advertisement things and that. But it's very much essential na. Like basically because of you are getting the new product as well as the kind of like somebody the company will kind of like somebody get the product. Like basically this is kind of like a thing that na, I am not really sure with this thing. Like right now na, it's a kind of like a very legal thing. Okay, yeah, the stuff that I'm kind of like try to mention, it might not right at the moment because of that ki, like if I'm say this thing, people will kind of like utilize this artifact for wrong purposes. They might gonna say this thing, you said this thing, so it will not gonna happen. Like you mention this, you mention in your artifact that ki you will kind of like take the information from the user and you will not take, like basically this kind of like a legal battleship will gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a thing. That's what I'm trying to tell you is this thing. My artifact, the whatever I mentioned, is not considered as the evidence, is not considered as a statement. That is a very much essential because it's a raw, it's unfiltered. Okay, yeah. I don't know what kind of like a somebody problem that I will face, or I don't know what kind of like somebody the responsibility that I hold. I do understand the responsibility, but I don't know like the like basically I understand the context, but the reality would be kind of like a much more different. Like basically in the reality, I have to be take such a decision that I don't like it, and that is a reality. By the way, we are kind of like a living in real world. We are messy and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a things. Okay, so basically it's a very legal thing. Okay, yeah, like a stuff that I'm kind of like a try to mention. I'm kind of like a really much scared right now to kind of like a tell you this thing because of that key. It might be utilized for wrong purposes. So again, that's why I'm trying to tell you, artifact is not a kind of like evidence, is not a statement. Okay, yeah, because the stuff that I'm trying to tell you is just me without knowing what exactly happened. Okay, yeah. My statement, my evidence would be kind of a consider when I kind of like a do the exactly things and that and that. That's what I kind of like a mention. Artifact is not considered as a kind of like evidence and not considered as a kind of like a statement. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that na ki regarding about what kind of like Adam does had information, like basically is this thing na ki then probably is this thing if like I'm trying to kind of like understand. Okay, yeah, let's take a thing. If the Adam will kind of like a not, if the government will kind of like a not letting me to kind of like a somebody take the information of the user, or government kind of like a say this thing that you shouldn't supposed to take the information, things and that, then what will gonna happen is this thing that key it's a very wrong thing. Okay, yeah, like I don't know, the artifact is kind of like a somebody like, let me kind of like understand what exactly happened. Let's say a kind of like a things that key you wanted to go from point A to point B. Okay, yeah. Now going to the point B, there is no straight line. There is no straight line. Okay, yeah. There is so much kind of like a ways to go to the point B. Okay, yeah. So how should you supposed to be arrive at point B? You need direction, na? You need direction. You have to turn left. You have to turn right. You have to do this. You have to do that, right? That direction Adam gives that direction Adam gives to the user to kind of like arrive at point B. And what is exactly that point B, and how does kind of like Adam knows what is exactly where is your point B? Okay, let me kind of like a thing. Like I like a basically I do understand that ki artifact is kind of like a simply like a goes directly on your head, literally went to your head, like a no other social media platform can go directly to your head, but artifact is kind of like a go directly to your heads. Like basically is this thing that na that key the action that you do after you record artifact is much more higher than any other social media platform. Okay, this is what essential, like basically when you kind of like mention that you wanted to be a filmmaker and things and that, it is more likely towards to take a action because you already said this thing in artifact. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, it directly went into your head and it kind of like a push you towards the action and things and that. Okay, yeah. So Adam tried to kind of like understand if that particular person take the action, so take the action according to the kind of like assembly the point he that wanted to be. Like basically he's a particular person wanted to be filmmaker, so basically ask such a question associated with the filmmaker, associated with the kind of like a film industry, associated with the kind of like a how he's supposed to be achieve that thing and that. When Adam asked this question, that particular person more likely towards became a filmmaker because he will take the action according to that. Okay, yeah. Now this is what it is. Now there is also another question actually arise that he does Adam have that authority to kind of like somebody understand what is actually their goal and things and that. Like basically is this thing, I wanted to be filmmaker, but in the future I don't know I will become a filmmaker, or maybe in the future I will become something like engineer. So basically is this thing that key like basically what exactly is this thing? Okay, yeah. Like basically Adam kind of like make me to become a kind of like a somebody filmmaker, but in reality I became engineer. So I don't I don't know about that thing. Like basically is this thing na ki, let me tell you something that okay, yeah, it's very much essential to have the information about the Adam, because Adam will kind of like improve your personality as much as better it possible. Okay, yeah, it try to kind of like ask you such a question and things and that. Adam does not have the real information about you. That is a one important thing. So basically, there is no privacy. Now I'm not taking the information from the user, right? Like if I'm kind of like a taking the user from this is a username, this name, and this particular person kind of like a wakes up at 9:30 a.m. So probably this is a kind of like a simply invasion of privacy. That is true. But Adam does not have the information. Na? Adam have the information about the kind of like a random username. Okay, yeah. So basically, it does not have the real name and things like that. Adam knows that you kind of like a wake up at 9:30 a.m. But Adam does not know the who is actually wake up at 9:30 a.m. So is it the invasion of privacy? I am not really sure about that. That is a kind of like a things. And this is kind of like a problem that, yeah, okay. Still, again, I kind of like somebody is just saying that yeah, I shouldn't supposed to be kind of like a talk about that more about this particular topic, because more I talk about this particular topic, more possibly wrong consequences will gonna happen with me, because even if I'm say this thing, this is kind of like a not a considered as a evidence and not a considered as a statement, but people might consider that. Okay, yeah, because people doesn't understand the legal kind of like some words and things and that. But still, again, I mention this is not a evidence. This is not a statement. It's just my raw artifact, unfiltered, because of whatever the information that I have from today's point of perspective, I am not really sure what will gonna happen in the future. So I don't know the possible consequences will gonna happen. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm asking this question to aware of what will gonna come. Okay, yeah, but I don't know when it will gonna come. What kind of like option do I have at that moment? So that's the kind of like a things. Okay, yeah, probably it's a kind of like a thing that now I have to be kind of like a lot of stuff. But the only purpose is that I'm trying. Okay, yeah, what is actually my purpose to kind of like build the artifact? The artifact add value in me. The person that I am today and person I will become tomorrow is because of artifact. Is because of artifact add. How? Is because of artifact add value in me. And I do understand that how much big responsibility that I'm holding. I do understand, like I wanted that the amount of value that I get from the artifact, I want the same. I want to kind of like let the user will have the kind of like some same value that I get. My intention is never really wrong. I don't want to kind of like somebody is this thing that can just kind of like do a kind of like a sleeky business and things like that. I also don't want to earn money as well as, like, yeah, I wanted to earn money. It's not like that I established this business and things and that. I wanted to earn money, but I don't want to earn money by kind of like simply let the people kind of like go into the rabbit hole and I will kind of like earn the money and things and that. I don't want that. Okay, yeah. My intention has always been right, and intention has always been kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. That key kind of like a make them better person. Like basically is this thing na the society will kind of like improve overall is because of that ki everybody is kind of like improve. Okay, yeah, everybody will kind of like get the value and things like that. I understand this kind of like somebody the artifact will add value and things. I understand things, but probably is this thing na ki there are a lot of I don't know. My intention is not wrong. Like just yeah, my intention is not wrong. Like a stuff that I'm trying to tell you is this: I'm taking the information from the user to Adam and things and that. It might sound so evil and things and that. But I don't have that. I don't have kind of like a thing. I can't kind of like try to understand now. Billions of people will kind of like record the artifact. How there are so many things we're gonna manage. What kind of like a somebody artifact will recommend to them? How do I supposed to add them value? Like there are so many things are actually happened. Like the amount of value that I had to the people, I have to be understand that what is actually value that they hold. Like basically is this thing na ki is this thing they are wrong at something, I have to be know that now what is actually wrong they have. So when I know that this is the wrong thing, then I will solve their problem na. like like basically is this thing na, if I don't know their problem, how do I supposed to fix that problem? Okay, yeah. But dude, like who give you rights to kind of like solve the problem? No, it's not. Okay, it's not like no one kind of like give me rights to solve the problem, definitely not. But providing the value to the people is kind of like solving the problem, right? Okay, I don't know, might be kind of like a things that okay, this kind of like a very crucial topic and crucial like a very kind of like a very sensitive topic to talk, and I don't have that much information at the moment. All right, again, this is not a statement, this is not a evidence, it's just raw, it's unfiltered. Okay, so do not consider that. Thank you.